this is, you know, the civil rights movement happened, and, you know, the Iraq war happened, and I remember like being at those protests and things like that, but this is so much bigger than that, and it's happening here, and I've taught here for 6 years, and I've never seen momentum like this before, ever, around anything. So it's really powerful, but the only way that people know that it's actually happening is if you can get the public interested, and social media is the way to do that. So it's really interesting when you look at, you know, the democratic movement in Egypt, all the different things that have happened over the last 2 years that have been in other countries where social media has played a key role, and that's not really happening in the United States, other than, you know, it got tweeted that Osama bin Laden had died 2 days before the president told us, right? We already knew, but that is the energy right now. There is, you know, almost an underground movement that people know about things before they actually know about things. So how do you get that information to people successfully, right, without it being interceded? Now, in some ways you want it to be interceded, and that's one of the things I want to talk a lot about today. So what kinds of social media can you use? There's tweeting. What else is there? There's Facebook, obviously.
I don't know what YouTube.
YouTube is huge. Google Plus is getting to be the more professional medium of where information comes from. So you're already using those tools, but what's interesting about using those tools is they're changing while you're using them. So one of the most important things that you have to know is that as you use the tools, someone has to stay abreast of what changes are happening, at least so that your members can tell people. So here's a really small example. You know, now on Facebook, only the top stories pop up for people. So if you want all of your members to get every single one of your posts, like what I do, I've, you know, blocked, you know, SQE, I make it so that I see all the posts from SQE. So whenever someone from your group puts something on, it will always pop up for me, whether it's been liked by anyone or not. And I have a couple pages that I do that for. All of your members should do that. I mean, that should be the way that you're communicating with one another, and that's just one way of sharing information among each other that stays in touch with what's going on. But I want to talk about, before I get there, being editorial. So here's one of the most interesting parts about the social process, right, of social media. Anyone can go on there and write anything. Have you guys experienced that at all yet? I mean, I have that. I have classes, and I have clubs, and I have, you know, different democratic organizations, union organizations, and I'm in charge of managing the social media. And one of the most challenging things that I face is really derogatory people posting on my page. But there's a really simple way to deal with this. Do you know what it is? What? No.
Be more derogatory.
No. Nobody knows, really?
Ignore them?
You can ignore them. Now, so if someone, let's say someone goes on there and says, the Occupy event is bullshit, right? On your Facebook page. Right underneath your announcement, there's an event today. What would you do?
Thank you.
You can write thank you.
Well, we would probably just explain our position.
You can explain your position.
Educate them.
Right. Here's the situation, though. You're drawing attention to a negative remark. So if someone writes a question like, what is this about? That's a great opportunity for educating. If somebody writes something like, this is all bullshit. Right? Usually they don't want to be educated. Now the best thing about Facebook is whatever pops up is the new news, right? What was news 2 hours ago is the news now. So the best thing to do with that kind of information is flush it. And what I mean by flush it is if you put a bunch of new positive information, some data, some stats, some you know, event updates as your new status updates for your page or for your tweet, it makes that the new news, and it flushes that down to the bottom so you can't even see it anymore. But if instead you did what Nora said we engage that person head on, then that makes it a top headline. That makes it news. That lets you know, the public know, that you don't have full support, right? So it's not necessarily ignoring it. When you see it, you have to tell all of your members, now it's time to flush that out, flush it out, and fill the page with positive information so that people are getting news, but not the negative news, right? And that becomes down to an ethical issue. I don't personally feel comfortable deleting negative remarks about the union, deleting negative remarks about the Democratic Party. Now, if there's, you know, things that are completely inaccurate, or they call me a cunt on the page, I take it off. I mean, and those things happen, right? I mean, people say really negative things in social media. They forget that, you know, it can't be deleted, and I have to take it off. I mean, I report them. Yeah.
That's the good thing about it. That's the exciting thing about it, because you have to be equally loved as well as equally hated.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the fact that you have both of those aspects in one, either way, you're getting attention.
Right. So I had a faculty member that I was good friends with, and we used to sit around, you know, on the last day of school. We finished our grading. We're taking our final exams in graduate school, and we would read what students wrote about us, you know, on online social media pages about teachers. And she actually printed out what a student wrote and framed it on the wall, which was, I hated the teacher, I hated the book, I wanted to bludgeon the teacher to death with the book. Wow. I know, right? And I was like, that is the worst thing I've ever read. And she said, but I elicited such a strong response. I mean, whether they hate me or they love me, there's this, you know, polarization of these two opposite feelings. But I'm